Hello and welcome to the ADHD Artist Podcast, where we explore and celebrate the lives of artists with ADHD. Listen to interviews with all different types of artists with ADHD, where we talk about life, art, superpowers, and... Wait, what was I saying? Hosted by Sarah Guys, your fellow ADHD artist. Thanks for joining. Hello, everyone. Today is June 24th, 2020. Still a lot going on in the world. Please take care of yourselves. I have quite the treat for you today. My guest today is Roxanne Jarrett. So I first heard about Roxanne and her work on another podcast for ADHD, and I remember being super intrigued by her. And when I started working on this podcast, I started thinking about Roxanne, and I was like, she is the exact type of person I want to have on this show because she's got an amazing story. She is a successful singer. She is also a creativity and entrepreneur coach for people who have ADHD and really anyone. And she also believes in the power of creativity and that it can heal you. And I obviously believe that as well. So I reached out to Roxanne before I had even released any episodes, and I kind of told her what I was planning on doing, and I asked her if she would be up for an interview, and she said, yeah, she would love to, and I was just elated. So meeting her and connecting with her was incredible, and I'm so excited for you guys to meet her and be introduced to her work. So here are some details about her. Roxanne Jarrett is a multilingual singer and coach who helps motivated creatives finish their passion projects. Finish being the key word there because, oh my gosh, how many of you start a million projects and don't finish them? Hi, guilty. She also facilitates workshops to unleash creative expression and deepen social connections. Roxanne is living proof of the power of creativity. She practiced multiple art disciplines to recover from PTSD and no longer meets the criteria for diagnosis. Her gutsy performance of It's a Man's World became a rallying cry after the 2016 election, and she served as arts organizer for the Women's March on Washington. Definitely make sure you check out the episode notes on this one because I will have her websites and ways to follow her on social media. In addition, feel free to reach out to me with any comments or questions, or if you just want to connect, if you have ADHD, if you don't, if you are an artist, if you like the show, if you hate the show, but please be nice, I'm sensitive. I've been hearing from some folks already, and it's really nice. So yeah, email me, the ADHD Artist Podcast at gmail.com. All right, let's get started with the interview. I am here with Roxanne Jarrett. Roxanne, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
So I just want to start out and ask you, have there been any moments in the last, in today or in the last couple days where you have really noticed your ADHD?
Oh, yeah. So we're going through a lot in this country right now, and in the world. And so I was kind of dealing with something in my business, and I was very focused on it, right? Very focused on this class that I'm going to facilitate. And then I started to get all of these calls and emails and messages, people wanting to talk to me about Black Lives Matter and Black entrepreneurs and Black women and Black everything, you know. And then I started to get into these conversations, multiple conversations, and I felt like I wanted to address things. So then I started to make content specifically toward that. And after about a week, I said, wait a minute. How is this connected to what I'm doing in my business? This whole thing got me like in some other place. And how do I get back to where I want to be or how do I incorporate what's going on in the world right now to where I want to be and for the things I want to focus on in my life. Because I don't necessarily think that I want it to change radically. I want to adjust to it, just paying attention to and honoring who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of tool you used to get through some of those moments?
I have these sessions with myself, right? Where I lock my bedroom door, and luckily, like, my bedroom is like a suite. So it's like a bedroom, and then it has an art room, like, kind of attached or through a little walkway, and then a bathroom, right? And then a balcony. So I just lock the door. And when I'm there, I tend to tidy up, but very leisurely, and so I'm just like picking stuff up, and that's when I do the bulk of my thinking. And it's often not planned, like, oh, I'm gonna spend this time thinking about this. I just start cleaning, and then while I'm cleaning, things will come up. I'll notice in my mind, and most particularly in my body, if I'm not content about something, or if I feel out of sorts, and I pay attention to that. I focus on it, and then I say, hey, and that's the time where I realize, wait a minute, why am I making these posts about this thing or that thing? I mean, it was worth it. I really needed to get some things out, really. But I said, okay, I did that. And now it's time to go back to what I wanted to focus on and, adjust accordingly, incorporate what's going on with my work instead of having the whole world, having me adjust to the whole world,
Absolutely.
And everyone else's agenda and just, it's not even necessarily other people's agendas. It's just the world and what's going on in it.
Yeah. It's I've been hearing a lot about self-care in these times, and that seems absolutely like self-care. You can do that thing, make that post, and also take care of you.
Yeah. So I made some posts, but then I deliberately did not go on social media, and I said, I'm going to take these 4 hours just to clean, just to cook some, just to tidy up my kitchen, my bedroom, my living spaces, and so on. Yeah. And in that, the thinking and the planning and the readjustment happens.
That's so great. I think that's going to be helpful for people to listen to. So I want to talk about when you were diagnosed. From what I understand, you and your daughter were diagnosed around the same time. Is that correct?
That is.
Yeah. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah. So that was about 10 years ago now. And my daughter was in kindergarten, and I was almost 20 years out of college and 17 years out of grad school, when I was diagnosed. I had been suspecting it maybe for about 8 or 9 years before that, but I wasn't officially diagnosed until I was already a parent. Yep. And then found I was parenting a child with ADHD also.
Wow. So what was that like to finally get the diagnosis after suspecting it for so long?
I just felt like, I knew it. But it was definitely a road to exploring options for treatment, for addressing my issues. Yeah. Certainly. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So you are a singer. And I've gotten a chance to listen to you a little bit in your videos. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And I would love to know what it feels like to sing.
My gosh. So I am a multidisciplined artist, but if I had to pick one, it would be singing. And I say this thing, I sing so I can breathe. So I have ADHD. I live with ADHD. And meditation, breath work, all of that stuff it's really powerful. It's really helpful. I'm also alone a lot, which I don't mind. I love my solitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do have focus issues. I have focus challenges. And so I can go a certain amount of time, some days or so, doing meditation, breathing, listening to a meditation audio, and it can be helpful. It's just that it's difficult for me to sustain. But when I sing, I have to breathe. I have a focus that's really important to me. I want to hit that note. I want to extend that measure. I want to express something. I have an idea of what it's to sound like, what I want it to sound like, and I have a goal that I'm trying to achieve. And that goal is really for me. And I'm just blessed that other people benefit from it, but it's really for me. So if I have to hold a note for 16 counts, I need to breathe. I need the breath for that.
Wow.
And so that's why I sing, because that is how I get to do my deep breathing. Every time that I feel really stressed, I stop and say, wait a second, when was the last time I sang? And sometimes I have dropped everything, Sarah, and gone out on the street with my PA system and my microphone, because I'm anxious, because I'm just full of adrenaline. And there is never a day when I do that I don't feel 100% better, plus tax, right? So I sing so I can breathe. I sing so I can be calm and grounded. That is my meditation.
Wow. When did you discover your love of singing?
I guess I was about 9. Piano was my first instrument. So I started playing piano when I was 5. And when I was 9, I had gone to a new school, and I'd had a hard time the year before. I was put ahead in school a year. I already had like a late birthday, like the end of November. So let's say I went to first grade when I was 5, and then I turned 6, like the end of November, right?
Got it.
So, but then I was put ahead another year. So when I went to eighth grade, when I went to 5th grade, I was 8.
Wow, that's so young.
Right? Yeah. And then I turned 9 in November. But I had such a hard time adjusting to being with this new group, and then being so young in this new group, and so on. So I fell into a depression, and I didn't know the name of it, right? I didn't know it was called depression, but my mother saw that there was something going on with me, and she took me to the doctor, and the doctor said not to keep me in an unhappy situation for more than 6 months. Well, I had to finish out the school year. So I did that. And then she moved me, or my parents moved me. I think my father is the one who found the school, moved me to a small private school. Previously I was in public. And that school had a lot of arts, right? And I was just singing with the group. You know, we're all singing together. The music teacher was playing the piano, and she said, "Who's that?" And then she went back to the piano, and she started playing. She said, "You guys know the song. Keep singing. I'm going to stop playing." She stopped, and she just kind of went around looking at, listening to everyone. And then she pointed at me. She said, "You." And she pulled me forward, And so that's when I knew I could sing. I never knew I could sing before. And then I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the performance of it. She was very perfectionistic, this teacher. She or at least she had a very strong idea of what she wanted to elicit from our the students as performers. And I want you to smile, and I want you to snap, and I want you to move, and I want you to look happy, but I realized that, and so I kind of got a lot of crap from it, from other students, because she didn't pull any punches. She would get mad, like when the students weren't doing it. She's like, Roxanne is the only one who's smiling and snapping and making this look like, the way it's supposed to look,
Yeah.
and so, some kids were like, hey, you're making us look bad and everything. But, it was one time in my life where I really just didn't care. I enjoyed it. I wasn't doing it to get brownie points. The brownie points were a little extra.
Yeah.
They were just some icing maybe, and not really, because if I'm getting crap for it, it's not really icing.
Right.
But it was just one of those kind of fuck you moments in my life where I'm just like, look, I like this. I'm good at it. I'm not going to let you stop me from being good at it.
Yeah.
Or enjoying what I'm doing. So that's what I did.
And then continued to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That moment of recognition of just like, I know I love this, and you know that I'm good at it.
Yeah. And that was it. And that was the first time I ever saw myself as anything exceptional. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone but I'm saying I was always, before that, I always looked at myself as, very unremarkable, very much so. I'm aware that we all have gifts. We all have at least one exceptional gift.
Yeah.
It's just that at that point, I was able to discover it, and what a gift that was.
That's amazing. Oh, I hope that everyone gets to have a moment like that,
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
Life-changing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then you are an artist, but you are also a coach, and you work a lot with creativity. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into that?
Yeah. Well, I started out, I went to school. In college, I went to school for drama studies, which is really a combination of performance and theater history and directing and writing all rolled into one. And then when I went to grad school, it was educational theater. So it was all that, history and writing and directing. But added to that was curriculum development and implementation. So I started off very early with teaching. I was 19 when I taught my first class, because remember, I was put ahead in school. Right. So I was 19 when I was a senior in college. Then I turned 20. And then I went to grad school when I was 20. I didn't take a year off or anything. So I started teaching when I was 19, and I continued teaching after that. And so I've been developing programs and implementing curricula for a while. And so moving into specifically dealing with creativity wasn't difficult for me, because I'd spent so much time with curriculum development.
Yeah.
And the earlier part of my career. What happened, Sarah, was at a certain point when I was about 25, so 6 years into teaching, I became very ill. With the diagnosis was PTSD, severe clinical depression, dissociative disorder, all of those resulting from some traumas that I experienced. And so it got to the point where I was hospitalized. And the first hospitalization, I had about 10 inpatient hospitalizations. I discovered the art therapies. So, I mean, it was a perfect match for me anyway. I was coming from a theater background, a musical background. And so I had music therapy, I had drama therapy, I had visual art therapy, all in the same hospital. Mm-hmm. And I responded very well to the art therapies. So I took that and I ran with it. And I tried to get those types of services once I was discharged, and I was reasonably successful with it. Not much. It wasn't very much, even in New York City, which is where I was mm-hmm. at the time, that was covered by insurance. And being somebody who wasn't working, I really didn't have a lot of disposable income, or much income, period.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I used art forms as my primary recovery practice, because really what was prescribed for me as somebody with severe clinical depression and PTSD was go to therapy once a week. And so 45 minutes to an hour of talking to someone, and then the rest of the hours of the whole rest of the week were for what? Right?
Yeah.
So I immersed myself in art forms. I mean, I learned how to make candles. I was in the library all the time, right? Because I was so unwell. I had severe anxiety, agoraphobia. Like, it was hard for me to leave the house. I stopped working because I found it. I don't like to say can't. I don't want to say I couldn't leave the house, right? But that's how I felt back then, that I couldn't, right? I did leave the house. I was often escorted, you know, a friend would come get me and walk in the house and walk out with me. And I started there, or a family member would take me to therapy or take me to the library. But after a while, I started going to the library on my own, but I was so emotionally fragile that it was hard for me to take a job, because I could cry at any moment, you know, I could, you know, and I just didn't want to mar my reputation.
Right. Oh,
so I just didn't work.
Yeah.
All I did, which was a blessing because I chose to do that, was work on myself. So I was just like a full-time, you know, artist.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for money. I wasn't trying to sell anything necessarily.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to immerse myself in artistic expression. So, you know, learned how to make candles, sandals, that rhymes.
I know.
And, batik. I taught myself how to do batik, tie-dye, sculpt beads. Oh my gosh, so many things.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? Because what was your question? How did I get to working with creativity with other people? It's just at a certain point, I was able to put together all of the things that seemed to help me. The creativity was one thing that was huge.
Yeah.
But the next thing that came a little bit later in my recovery process was connection. And so I ended up joining, it's almost 20 years now, 2001, just after the September 11th attacks. A friend of mine, she wasn't a friend of mine then, I didn't know her, she put signs up in her neighborhood in Brooklyn, like just saying, let's get together and do some acting, you know, improv and so on. And I saw it. Actually, I was coming from therapy. Her where she lived was near where I went to therapy. And that's how I saw the sign, like on a lamppost. And I took it. And I remember I took it, and then I had it in my pocket. I forgot about it because I have ADHD.
I feel that.
But then the next time I went to therapy, I saw it again. And I took it and I called that time. And I showed up. It was a Saturday. And it was like 3 to 4 hours a day of just like acting improv, right? And so again, another art form, but this art form was interactive. And it was something that, I mean, we're still friends, and people from that ensemble that we developed over the time, we're still friends. And that connection piece was it was tremendous, because coming from trauma, particularly when the trauma is connected to the acts of other people.
Yeah.
And there's this internal healing, but there's also like needing to trust again, needing to trust in other people again.
Yeah.
Needing to have faith in other people again. And that you can't do that on your own.
Yeah.
You have to connect with other people to be able to do that.
Yeah. To build that up.
Yeah. You know? And it's a risk. It's always a risk. But you're never going to get there if you don't risk it. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So my friend Kate just created this incredible space where people could come together on a Saturday afternoon for like 3 to 4 hours and express in so many different ways, not just acting, improv. We did contact dance, improv. We did so much different stuff. And then she branched it out. And one time we went to the library in Manhattan that has a lot of resources for theater and drama. And I found this thing called psychophysical acting, right? An acting method. And so I read the book. I said, wow, we need this. Because at that point we had been together about a year. And this way, this helped us to deepen our intimacy. And so some of the exercises were pretty intense, but Kate allowed me to facilitate these exercises with our group. And so, yeah, we made a lot of strides, all of us, I think. And it's evidenced by the fact that, you know, we're still in contact. We're still, you know, I don't live in New York City anymore, but my daughter calls Kate and her partner aunt, you know, and other people from the theater family too.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest start for me.
Yeah.
And then when I discovered authentic connection games, I said, this is kind of like that psychophysical acting thing, but it's actually less intense. It's a little less intimidating, right? You know, it was cool for us to do the psychophysical stuff because we had been together like a year already.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of like developed some trust and a lot of connections. But with authentic connection games, you can bring strangers together and they leave there feeling like, wow, I feel understood. I feel refreshed. I've gained some new perspective. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to ask, how exactly does that work? The authentic connection games.
Oh my, it's like people assemble and what I like to do and what other facilitators do is, you know, create a container. So no latecomers are usually admitted. You know, I like to say, come at this time and then give a little time. But after that, we should kind of shut the door because we got to like focus in. Right.
Yeah.
And there are games or exercises that are varied from really super fun and silly to really like deep and intense and, you know, evocative. And so I guess any of them could be evocative, but they vary. And they could be paired, they could be whole group, or they could be smaller group. Usually in one evening, I take people through all of them. So you have a chance to be paired, you have a chance to play with the entire group, and you have a chance to play in a smaller group.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And they're structured in a way that, as far as I'm concerned, levels the playing field as much as possible so that everyone gets a chance to speak and everyone gets a chance to listen. Right?
Yeah. I'm so fascinated by this. So my kind of chosen art form is acting. And I've been doing that for most of my life. And in the training, it asks you to go to some scary places, and it asks you to connect with people and be really vulnerable. And that is incredibly scary. It definitely was for me. It still is. I've gotten better at being vulnerable with people, but even just the exercise where you look someone in the eye and don't look away. There is something, especially with having ADHD, there's something about that focus and connection that makes the whole world fall away.
I'm clapping for you, Sarah.
You know, and it's why I always say it's addicting. I'm like, I try so hard to quit acting, and then it just keeps calling me back, because I can't live without that, you know? So what you're describing just is so beautiful. And I'm so glad that people can do that aren't necessarily going to a training program for acting.
Yeah, and it's yours, you know, and acting is yours. I can see that. And the thing is, like, I'm trained in acting, right? And, and everyone who facilitates authentic connection games comes to it from wherever they're coming from. So I know dancers who, you know, you see a lot more movement in the way they facilitate. And I'm coming from teaching theater primarily through theater games and exercises, right? So I kind of approach it more from that perspective, although because I do other art forms, there are things I do that combine all of those things, including authentic connection games. But as you're talking about the eye contact, there is an authentic connection game.
Yes.
Where you have to, I love this game. I facilitated it and seen people get totally freaked out by it.
Yep.
I had one person walk out, and I told her, but I say from the beginning, you know, you need to take care of yourself. And whatever that looks like for you, including opting out of a game or opting out of the whole night, if that's what you need to do to take care of yourself, then all blessings and permission to you, you know? And I remember somebody walked out of the whole night because of the eye contact. There's no talking in that particular game. But you know, you have to make eye contact. And hold that, and until a particular thing happens, and I'll leave that hanging in the balance.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I know. Well, you have one tonight, and I mean, obviously this is going to be released next week. So people listening won't be able to go in tonight, but I was just so fascinated by the language of stepping into someone else's shoes as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that a new one? Is that a new workshop, or is that something you've been doing for a while?
Well, the particular game I facilitated before, and I'm focusing on one particular game tonight because of what's been going on in the world right now. And I get so many calls and messages every day, and a lot of people who are not Black or not of color are saying, you know, I want to understand. I want help trying to understand what's going on, what people feel, and then I know people of color and Black people in particular who are just saying, you know, some people just don't get it. They don't understand, right? So the game I'm facilitating tonight is called Offering Somebody Else's Life as Your Own.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
And everyone will have a chance to be paired with someone and learn about their story, and I'm going to give them a specific thing to focus on, to talk about with their partner. And the partner's job is to listen and be really curious and to ask questions if necessary for clarification. Not judgment, though. You know, not a question like, well, why didn't you do this? No, it's, you know, questions to fill in, color the picture. And understand, and then vice versa. Each partner gets to talk, each partner gets to listen, and then they have to go back to a larger group and offer their partner's life as their own. So speak in first person, you know, like if I was offering yours and say, hi, my name is Sarah Guys. And when I was 17 years old, I blank, blank, blank.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that too, because it's like studying for a role. And you know this because you've been in acting training, is you have to have that empathy to not only understand their life, but viscerally take that on and be able to speak it. And I think there's something really beautiful about that.
Yeah, powerful and necessary, because see, over this time, I've had loads of conversations, right?
Yeah.
And there's some people who approach and react to what's going on in the world right now, people protesting in the streets and all of this stuff going on, and with facts and figures and statistics, right? You know, and the issue is, look, if you're in a relationship, right? Okay, you and me, we're talking, we're in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
And I say something, and you have an emotional response to it. Right? And if I care about my relationship with you, Sarah, right, then I want to know what you're feeling, and whatever I said or did, whatever response that you had, where that's coming from for you. That might have to do with your past. It might not have to do with logic.
Yeah.
It might have to do with an experience that you had, something that you feel. And those things are very hard to measure with statistics. And the thing is, like, if we can't stop and look and say, wow, people are upset, people are feeling something very strongly, or else they wouldn't be out in the streets like they are, in multitudes like they are, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I need to take some time to understand what they're feeling so that I can respond in a way that shows that I care. Then if you can't do that in this world and in this life, no facts and no figures and no statistic can help you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So, okay. So what advice do you have for a young aspiring artist who may be struggling with whether they want to go into the arts? And I should say ADHD. So what advice would you have for an aspiring ADHD artist who is deciding whether they want to go into the arts?
Ask yourself this question. Do you love it? Does it sustain your attention? Because, see, I was terrified, Sarah, when I decided, because I went into college like undecided, right? And I declared a major after 2 years. And I was terrified that I was declaring a major of drama studies, right? Because I'm like, oh man,
how am I going to get a job?
Exactly. But the question really is, and I didn't know I had ADHD back then, you know, but I guess my intuition was good, developed enough at that point. Do I love it? That was the question. Because I loved it, I could get into it. And because I could get into it, I could excel at it. And people with ADHD, more than, you know, I mean, I wish for everyone in the world to do something that they love, right?
Yeah.
But people with ADHD, because our brains are wired differently and we need to be able to sustain attention, we have to do what we love. Right. We have to.
Yeah.
Do you want to feel like a mediocre half-ass your whole life?
Right.
I don't. So, and I mean, we've been struggling. We're in schools for the most part that are designed for neurotypicals. So it's kind of like we're working against the way our brains work anyway. Right. And then on top of that, we're going to choose something for what? Money? No. Somebody has to excel in the arts.
Yeah.
Let it be you.
Right.
Let it be you. And if you're struggling with certain aspects of it, one of the biggest things that I have to say, and I'm coming through this from years of experience and being stubborn, frankly, is face the facts.
Yeah.
There are parts of a job that we don't like, right? Claim that. I don't like this.
Yeah.
I'm not good at this, or I'm struggling with this. Just say it. First step. I'm struggling with this. Okay, I love acting or I love teaching theater, but I'm struggling with creating lesson plans. I'm struggling with sitting down to create lesson plans. I create great lesson plans. It's just a transition to sitting down to create a lesson plan that can often be the struggle, right?
Yeah.
So whatever the struggle is, however seemingly insignificant, if it's stopping the flow of work, say I'm struggling with blank first.
Name it. Yeah.
And then name it, and then start to move into the direction of addressing the issue,
right.
or the challenge, whether it's joining up with other people who are motivated too,
Yeah.
who are definitely motivated. Like, I love this, but I need to get from point A to point B, and this is in the way.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. Whatever it is, but definitely face that fact, For me, sometimes it's just like, if my house isn't tidy enough, like clean enough, my house is messy a lot, but my house is clean a lot too, because I'm like an all or nothing, which is typical. The maintenance is hard, but when I clean, place looks nice, right? But I like it clean, right? But I struggle with that. I struggle with, eating, because I might be so into what I'm doing that I forget to eat. So how do we first name that and then address that? I said, well, okay, let me join up with a friend and we'll bulk cook together, because if I try to motivate myself to bulk cook a lot, alone rather,
right,
I feel overwhelmed and I feel like I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So name your struggles.
Yeah.
And name your loves name your loves first and foremost, and then name the struggles within that.
Well, that's a perfect segue into how do people contact you if they're interested in your coaching?
Okay, great. So you can go to swellhead.com for coaching, right? And roxannejarrett.com to find out more about me. So I offer coaching, but see, coaching is really a small part of what I do, and I'll tell you why, because there's so many people who coach who are really great at it, right? And I don't think I'm half bad either. What my main focus is for people, particularly people with ADHD, creative people with ADHD, is to get from point A to point B in session. So they're coaches who will talk you through and understand a lot about ADHD and even in terms of the wiring, the science, and so on. That's not my strength. I know stuff, but that's not my strength. Mm-hmm. What I am strong in is getting the work done. Mm-hmm. And so what I offer is something called momentum meetings. And that is a minimum of 2 hours in a session where the coaching and the planning take place in the first 15 minutes or so. That's, of course, after the initial meeting where we really talk out everything, right? But once we get to work, it's like, okay, I'm helping you with time management in real time, right? And I'm helping you to set goals within the session and to execute work within the session, because my background is varied, right? I've been an administrative assistant in corporate and in nonprofit sectors. I've been a household manager, right? And I've been a producer and production manager for film and theater. And that incorporates everything, like that ensemble I'm talking about that I was in Brooklyn. When we had a show, we had this thing called a happening, where it's not just like we sell tickets and you sit and we perform. it's an interactive experience. So I was the manager of the production, getting the food in, pulling all these pieces together. Plus I have secretarial skills, right? So in a momentum meeting, I'm transitioning you to a place where you can start delegating work to other people. I'm setting that up for you. So when you're ready to say, okay, this is what I'm struggling with. Remember when you name your love and then you face the facts of what's difficult for you. So let's say you have to make social media posts, right? Mm-hmm. You want to create content because that's what you like, right? Yeah. But then if you're on social media doing all this stuff and posting and doing all that stuff, then you're getting distracted, right? And it's probably not your strength, right? So you might need to delegate that to someone. I work with people short term to set them up to delegate the things that that are challenging for them so that they can succeed at the things they're good at. Mm-hmm. And in momentum meetings, I'm that person. I'm the person you delegate to, and I'm the person who's managing your time and your production and your project. I'm all rolled into one. So if I say in the next 30 minutes, Sarah, you are going to edit that poem, and in the next 30 minutes while you're doing that, I'm going to be typing out the one that you've already edited that needs the corrections done, and formatting it for you so it's like here. So I'm a body double, like how the body doubling, but I'm an active body double.
Wow.
So I'm doing work on your behalf and managing your time and your focus.
So I love that, because my experience with coaching sometimes is I get really inspired really quickly. And so I'll go away with so many ideas and then I don't know. And then I just curl up into a ball because I'm like, it's too overwhelming. So the idea that you would walk out of this session with things done.
Yes.
And then have that confidence is so powerful.
Absolutely. It's the execution and the implementation that's a big challenge for people with ADHD. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's where that swellhead name comes from. It's like, oh, my head is full of so many ideas and so much stuff. And it's like, oh, can we shrink this down a little? And I mean, it's going to blow up again, and that's great. It's great. We just keep the ideas coming, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's the coaching piece. And then I also facilitate workshops.
Right. Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanted to leave us with?
I do. I want to just tell people about a workshop that is coming up, especially if you don't know what you want to do. Like, I don't know about don't know what you want to do. If you're looking to awaken your creativity, you're creative, you want to be more creative, you want to connect with people, you want to do all those things.
Yeah.
And you want to start building that momentum and that motivation and that fire to be the creative person that you are destined to be. Yeah. I have a workshop coming up called Connect and Create, where I take you through writing and sketching and breath work and authentic connection games all within one session. So, I mean, it's a 4-week series, but with each session, you leave each session with a piece of writing, with authentic connection experience. So you connect with the other people in a meaningful and significant way.
Yeah.
An empathy building way, and a way that you develop understanding of others, and other people get to understand you, which is so validating too. And you leave with a small visual art piece. It's mostly sketching. You each session you leave with that. And it really helps build momentum and connection with other people, and in a space that I make as accommodating and welcoming and safe and caring and nurturing as possible. So yeah, that's coming up soon.
Great.
Which you can find on roxannejarrett.com.
Okay, perfect. And just to be clear about all what you're talking about, you don't have to have ADHD in order to get this kind of coaching and all that you offer, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Anybody who's having difficulty focusing in. Sometimes it's just your life otherwise is so busy.
Yeah.
It's so busy, and just having that time carved out. This is your time that we're going to get this thing done. It's hard to do that if you come home, well, a lot of people aren't coming home from work right now, but some people are, right? But after work, it's kind of hard to just say, okay, do I have a beer or do I, I work on this project? So, I'm there as your chief encouragement officer, I'm like, hey, I worked with a group of board game designers once. It was half a dozen of them, and they would meet after work at somebody's house, and I would show up, and I knew they were coming from work. So I would actually cook. I would actually,
oh my gosh.
they're they come back, they come in, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you want to eat? There's food.
Yeah.
Then we're going to set our goals, and we're going to implement our goals right here, right now. So when you leave and go home, you got your project moved along, and you had dinner, so you don't have to worry about it. And then you could just relax and go to bed or whatever. So.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Roxanne, this has been truly amazing. Thank you so much for being here, and it was so nice to connect with you. Finally.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out to me.
Of course.
I would love to see you perform one day, I hope.
Same here. Maybe one day we'll get to see each other live.
Right?
All right. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. It was an absolute pleasure.
Same here.
And that's it for today for the ADHD Artist Podcast. This podcast was produced by me, Sarah Guise. Original music composed by Christopher Aaron Narr. You can find more of his work at www.christopheraaronnar.com. Narr is spelled Knarr. Podcast artwork by Joseph Ramsky. For any inquiries, you can contact him directly at jramski3@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at the ADHD Artist Pod.